there is going to be some pushback when I bring up the topic of Social Security. That's a big elephant in the room. Now, there is this big debate whether or not you can trust the Social Security system, whether or not it's even going to be around. In my opinion, there are going to be a lot of reforms by the time you see this video, and maybe you're in your 20s or 30s, or maybe you're in your 50s. There's still going to be some reform in the Social Security program. I don't think it's going to vanish altogether, but you may not get as much as you expected. You may or may not be able to sufficiently rely on that. So, albeit as it may, that is a variable in your retirement planning. You do want to run two different scenarios. One, if the worst case scenario, if the Social Security program does disappear altogether, you still have some type of you still have some knowledge about what to do. And then you use your best case scenario, take those statements that you get from the Social Security Department, and then calculate that and see what numbers that you get. Now you tack on Social Security, again, that variable, it can range between, 30 an extra 31,000 or less or more, but minimum, okay? Estimate about 4%. Now, we just talked about the debate about Social Security. So again, just like in step 2, you want to calculate two different scenarios. What if you have Social Security? What if you don't? But general rule of thumb, estimate for about 4% for the safe withdrawal rate. Now, the bonus step is we just touched upon inflation. 70,000 now is not going to be valued at, and it's not even going to feel like 70,000 20, 30 years into the future. So what that means is, even though these are good rules of thumb, the 70% rule and the 4% rule, they're not the end of it all. You still want to be reviewing where you are at in terms of your retirement account, in terms of your savings, in terms of your income, in terms of inflation, all of that every single year at the minimum. Okay, so you want to make sure that you are understanding that in the ebbs and flows of the economy, that the inflation rate does fluctuate and it does impact that date when you can retire. So in short, retirement planning doesn't have to be super, super complex. But if you are like many millions of Americans and you don't even know where to start with these 3 steps, because you can simply kind of break out your statement and do the simple math for you to actually get an estimate, and then kind of start working from there. Once you start tracking your data and tracking your expenses and your income and where you're at, and kind of do the math and make sure the math is mathing, okay? It's a good place to start. Again, 70% rule, the 4% rule, and also adjusted for inflation.